Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Have you ever noticed how if someone in the room yawns, you just instantly yawn too? Or, how a toddler will suddenly try to hit a dance move right after watching a music video? It's honestly fascinating how our brains process copying. So, let's just dive right into this, because today we're unpacking a really tricky behavioral distinction that, trust me, trips up a ton of dedicated students, especially if you're gearing up for the 6th edition exam. I'm so glad we're tackling this together. Wrapping your head around these nuances, it's a total light bulb moment. We are looking at a topic that sounds incredibly simple at first glance, but actually has a lot of hidden depth. I'm talking about imitation versus observational learning. Rote copying isn't always the exact same mechanism as learning. Today, we're going to explore exactly why that is and really get to the bottom of the whole shebang. So, big question here. Are imitation and observational learning interchangeable? I got to admit, I used to think they were. In everyday conversation, people use these words totally interchangeably, without even a second thought. But here is the massive realization. If we mix these two up on the 6th edition exam, we are walking right into a trap and literally throwing away valuable points. No way around it. They are fundamentally different mechanisms. They don't function the same way, and they have entirely different parameters. Discovering that these two concepts are completely distinct, it totally changed how I look at behavioral mechanisms. And separating them permanently in our minds, well, that is exactly what we're going to accomplish right now.
Okay, we can break this down into a really clear core dichotomy: immediate duplication versus consequence monitoring. Picture a child who sees their parent clap their hands and instantly, boom, the child claps their hands too. That is immediate duplication. It's pure, instant, formal copying. Now, contrast that with consequence monitoring. Imagine a student sitting quietly in class. They aren't just blindly copying a motor movement. No, they're watching a classmate raise their hand. And crucially, this is the key part, they are monitoring the teacher giving that classmate a gold star, right? We are contrasting rigid, exact, instantaneous duplication against consequence-driven adjustments to a person's behavioral repertoire. Keeping this super clear contrast in mind is going to be our anchor as we break down the specific rules for both.
Section 1. The rules of imitation. Fast, sharp, and immediate. It kind of blew my mind when I realized that true behavioral imitation isn't just some casual everyday term. It has strict, non-negotiable parameters. Think of it like playing a super high-stakes game of Simon Says. To actually be classified as pure imitation, you absolutely must have these 4 elements. Number 1, an imitative model. Simon has to perform the action first. Number 2, formal similarity. If Simon pats his head, your behavior has to visually look exactly like patting your head. Number 3, a tight temporal relation. Basically, you got to do it fast. If you wait 5 minutes to pat your head, well, you lose the game, right? It has to happen quickly. And number 4, exact point-to-point correspondence. Listen, if any single one of these 4 parameters is missing, it is simply not pure imitation. Let's look a little closer at that 4th parameter, because understanding point-to-point correspondence is absolutely crucial. It's the ultimate key to avoiding those exam traps. A great way to think about this is imagining you're trying to trace a really complex drawing with a piece of tracing paper without ever lifting your pen. The beginning, middle, and end of the modeled behavior must exactly, step by step, map onto the beginning, middle, and end of the emitted behavior. If someone waves with 3 distinct hand sweeps, the imitation must be those exact same 3 hand sweeps. It's a real-time carbon copy. If the behavior doesn't mimic the model in this exact synchronized fashion right after presentation, well, the imitation trap has been triggered. Scratch that off your list because it's not imitation.
Section 2, the long game of observational learning. So now let's explore what happens when things aren't so immediate. Imagine a scenario right at 0 seconds where a model behavior is emitted. Okay, at 5 seconds, a consequence is delivered to that model. But suddenly, 48 hours later, we see an altered future probability in the observer's behavior. This is the truly fascinating part of observational learning. The learner doesn't have to copy the behavior right away. Instead, they act as an observer. They're just watching an independent operant loop play out. They see the behavior, they see the consequence, and the structural fallout of that whole event just sits in their brain, extending over a delayed timeline. It alters their future response environment days or, even weeks later. It's this wonderfully complex mechanism that doesn't rely at all on that tight temporal relation we just talked about. Let's break down the mechanics of that delayed timeline into 2 clear steps. Step 1, the learner watches another organism emit a topography and experience a consequence. Simply put, An observer watches a peer emit a behavior, let's say sharing a box of crayons, and witnesses the consequence of the teacher delivering glowing praise. They're basically taking mental notes on that structural fallout. Now, step 2. Witnessing that consequence fundamentally alters the observer's future probability of emitting that response, but specifically under an active motivating operation. Okay, so what does that actually mean? Well, let's say 2 days later, the observer really wants the teacher's attention. That desire, that is the active motivating operation. Because they watched that operant loop days ago, they're now way more likely to share their crayons. They didn't just instantly copy a motor movement. Their actual future response environment was changed by observing a consequence.
Section 3, the test. Locking in conceptual mastery. All right, now that we've mapped out these invariant boundaries, how do we actually confidently apply this? When I'm studying these tricky technical distinctions, I find that actively testing the concepts is literally the only way to make them stick. We're on a shared journey here, and we really need to practice navigating those level 3 traps that exam item writers just love to throw at us. So a great next step in our study journey is to head over to bxmeducation.com, select Study Tools and Resources, and take the Applied Reasoning Challenge. There's an awesome hidden mock block right there, designed specifically to test application. Working through those practical scenarios is an incredibly helpful way to secure these conceptual points, so we don't get tripped up by subtle wording on the big day. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought. Are you ready to defeat level 3 exam traps on test day? We've unpacked the strict, step-by-step immediacy of imitation. We've contrasted it with the delayed, consequence-driven magic of observational learning. And we've seen exactly how motivating operations pull the strings behind the scenes. Please don't let those subtle everyday terms blur your clinical definitions. Keep relying on these clear, logical structures to guide your understanding. And definitely go try out that Applied Reasoning Challenge. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer today. I am genuinely looking forward to unraveling our next complex topic together soon. Until then, keep up the fantastic work.